another Running On Air video. In this one I'll be looking at whether it's worth getting your music released on CD anymore. I'll be looking at some of the pros and cons of the format. I'll also be looking at the process I went through to get my latest album released on CD. I'll be going through music and product registrations, barcodes, track IDs, the manufacturing process, some key points about the artwork, preparing your master disc for manufacture, and I'll be leaving all the relevant links in the description. I'll also leave a 15% off code for those that would like to get a copy as a small thank you for following the channel and watching the video. If you'd like to help support the channel, then please consider buying a copy from my Bandcamp store, where CD and download options are available, which both come with Bandcamp streaming using their app. I appreciate that not everyone can afford this, so the first 3 plays are free anyway, and there is a shorter version of the album available in the usual streaming services. With all that out of the way, let's get on with it. Okay, so why do I like CDs? They don't take up a great deal of space, and the way they're produced these days makes them much nicer than they used to be. So I'll just give you an example. This is a good one. This is one I got recently, which was produced around the year 2000, and it's the old-fashioned plastic cases, and you'll notice that it's broken here. It probably would have been fine when it was put through the post, but of course it gets smashed up in the post because these things are so delicate that they just break all the time. But that's just the case. The actual disc itself tends to be a bit more robust. And in fact, it's very difficult to damage CDs unless you're doing it on purpose. Whereas you can easily damage vinyl by accident. I've done it many times. The stylus just skates across the surface and damages it. It's really annoying. And then of course you've got the issue of all the dust being collected. It's a real pain. It's not actually broken there. Quite often they break here as well, which is a real pain. I think part of the reason that CDs fell out of favour is because of these tacky cases, and I completely and utterly sympathise with that. But the sound quality is very good. But things have moved on. So I think as CD sales went down, companies started to think, well, what is it that people like about vinyl more than they do about CDs? And I think part of that is the coloured cases. They're just so much nicer. Look at a design like this, for instance. It's like a mini vinyl album. I mean, that's a 5-inch disc as opposed to a 12 or 7-inch disc. It's very nicely produced. If you love an album, then having a physical version of it tends to be the way people want to go. They want to have some kind of physical version. Vinyl does seem to be the ultimate, and I can understand that. There's a lot of nostalgia. But the delicacy of them I find slightly alarming. Spend 30 quid on something and then accidentally scratch it. These are much more robust. I guess everybody has their favourite format. Vinyl's very popular. Cassettes have made a comeback within the last 10 years. But for me, it's always been CDs. I remember when CDs came out and they just blew me away. I just thought, this is how I want to listen to music from now on. So it makes sense for me to have my work on CD because that's the format I like. So the first thing to do is to get together your master files. Now CDs can go up to about 70 minutes. But I've always felt that was a little bit long. I like the traditional 40 to 45 minute length of an album. That's just about manages my concentration span. So that's what I tend to aim for. Obviously that's totally up to you. So once you've got your master files together, then really it's a matter of going through the steps to get everything else in order so that you can end up with a decent product at the end of the day. So let's have a quick look at some of those. So you've got your masters. Now what you need to do is to be able to create a product which is identifiable by any retailers. In many ways you don't have to do this. If you really expect that you're only going to sell 20 CDs or something, then what is the point really? Well, I suppose my argument would be that if your album is identifiable, if for some reason it really does take off, then there's not going to be any confusion about who owns the material and who should get any money for it. So this is why my first step is to get a barcode. I mean, if you think there's quite a few albums with the same names out there, similar naming artists, there's potential for all kinds of confusion. It's surprising how much that can happen. So having a unique ID really helps pin it down to you so that you get any money which is due to you. And you might think, well, it's really not relevant because I'm just interested in releasing something on Spotify. But you'll find that when you go through the various companies which communicate with Spotify, you will end up with a barcode anyway, but they will just assign it to you. Let's just assume we're going to actually make the effort. We're going to stick a barcode onto our product. Where do you get barcodes from? The clue is probably already in front of you in that I am on this page, which is called Barcodes Talk. Now, when I was looking around for a good supplier of barcodes a few years back, they were really quite expensive. If I log into my account here, I can see that I've actually bought 15 barcodes from this company over the last almost 10 years. Actually, it is 10 years. And initially they were $41 for 5 codes. And now you can get, well, for $41 you can get almost 100, which is sort of crazy really. But I mean, I don't release albums that often, so I don't need 100. I've still got tons left, so I'm fine. I'd suggest probably going for something like 5 codes. I mean, what's the point of spending $5 on one code when you can get 5 of them for $10? You know, it's just in case you want to go for a second album or something. I've not had any problems with them. I've not noticed any issues. I think this company's pretty legit, and there's some useful videos here explaining barcodes, how they work, and the history of them. This one in particular is quite interesting, so that's worth going through if you're interested in a bit more about that side of things. So this is where you get the barcode, and when you get them, let me just see if I can. Right, so these are the various codes that I've downloaded at certain times. The format is slightly different between Europe and the US, so depending on where you're based, you probably want to go for the one in your region. So I always go for European ones, but there's not much difference between them. Have a look at the artwork. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a barcode, so no big surprises there. If you were going to be shifting 1 million units in record shops over the planet, then you really need to stick closely to this black on white format, because that will scan properly with a barcode scanner. I found that if you fiddle with the colors, it might look good, but it won't scan. So it really depends how important it is that it actually scans. Now, apart from actually putting it on the cover, the barcode is really important in terms of registering the work. So I'll show you that in a minute. The next thing then is there's a whole load of other registrations you need to go through. Now, at the moment, I'm just focusing on the music registration organisations of the United Kingdom. And they're going to be different depending on where you are. So you're going to have to do a bit of research. If you live in the States or Canada or somewhere else, then you're going to have to work out what the local equivalents are. Essentially, there's 2 organizations which you need to sign up to in order to get your work recognized. One is PPL, which is related to releasing media, physical media or online media, streaming, all of that sort of stuff. Anyway, if we have a look at it, so we've got join PPL here, and then what they do is they set you up with your own record company, and then you can register your work against your own record company. If you're only releasing your own work, then you can just say it's sort of like a home DIY project and so forth. everything is there in order that it could easily just turn into a record company. You could start signing artists, and that's a big subject that I certainly don't want to go into. But this is a starting point, because this makes your record company official, even if you're just releasing your own work. I'm going to log into my site here. See, I've been massively successful on the financial side of things. £1.42 there. Recordings. Okay, so I'm going to look at the conspiracy theory track. One of the things that you'll probably want to do is do a spreadsheet where you can note the various bits of information. So you'll have your barcode on there. That'll be the first thing that will go on there. You'll want a track list. You need to know how long the tracks are, because it will help them identify it if it comes up anywhere. And then you just add everything, and if you've got that written down somewhere, then it just makes life a lot easier, and you just build this spreadsheet and it becomes your own personal database of that release, and it's very, very useful. So if we have a look at the code, so the record company code is there, year of release is there. This is the first release of 2021, and this is just the way I organize these numbers. And this is the first track on the album. Got the recording time, so then we got contributors. So me, because it's a solo act. Rights holder info. Stretching their database here, obviously. Okay, starting running air music, but it's just a name, so that's fine, I think. Candidate recordings. Okay, so fine. So this has come up twice because I've got it as a CD, but it's also as a digital download. So this really relates to the Bandcamp product. If I was going to release it on Spotify as well, there would be another barcode which would be issued by the company that works with Spotify. As I said, there's a lot I could go on about with PPL, and I'm not going to go through how you do everything, because they have their own guide, and to be honest, to a large extent, you can work it out yourself. But I just wanted to show the paper trail of how all the numbers link together. And the important thing really is you start with your barcode, and then you start creating track codes, because these track codes, these ISRC numbers, are going to help you when you try and get radio play. Because if the work is played and the ISRC is noted, then when they log what they've been playing on their radio station, you'll start getting royalties for it. So it's really important to get all these numbers right at the beginning. Next organisation you want to sign up for is PRS, which is the Performing Rights Society. This is much more related to performance, as the name would suggest, but you can still register your recorded work, and if it's played, then there are royalties that can be gathered from it, and this is particularly in terms of television and radio and stuff like that. So it's really worth doing, and many people I've talked to have said that PRS has actually worked better for them than PPL. Anyway, as long as you're registered and all that information is in there, then hopefully you'll get what's coming to you in a good way. So it's worth doing. And I know a lot of people reject it and say, oh, I'm not bothered with any of that. And it's probably because it's so bloody complicated. But if you don't do the work, you're not going to get the reward. It's just like everything else. So I'm going to log in, and hopefully it'll allow me to do that. Oh, is PRS not playing today? I'm going to try it with Edge. That's how desperate things are getting. Okay, and we're in. For some reason, Chrome wasn't working today. Okay, so I did earn some money once, but as you can see, significantly more than PPL. Although it's not going to pay the mortgage, is it? And that was related to doing something live anyway, and I don't really do any live stuff anymore, so that's sort of fine, really, I guess. So here you have to go through a similar process of registering the work. Now let's just have a quick look and see. You can see that the ISRC which we got from PPL is here. they've created their own numbers here. There's loads of IDs here, but you don't really need all of them. No activity, well, it's not been released yet. But obviously it's going to go mad. It's going to go mad when it's out there. This is quite useful, the tune code. So when I was talking about doing that spreadsheet of information for your release, the tune code is worth having because people will ask about that, particularly for radio play and stuff like that. Hopefully that's helpful. I think it's worth registering this stuff. I've never had a massive amount of pay coming back from any of these things, but then I've not had a great deal of success in terms of sales, so what can you expect? Obviously that's all going to change, but the point is, if I did get success, I'd want to be in a position to be able to get my full reward for that, and this is how you do it. So it's worth making the effort, jumping through the hoops to get yourself registered so that anything that is coming your way, you get it, and it doesn't just disappear into some giant pot that somebody else ends up getting. Yes, so that's registrations. At this point you might be thinking, are we ever going to get around to making this attractive looking CD thing and doing some artwork and doing something creative? And the answer to that is no, we're not. The next thing you need to do once you have everything registered is to look at who is going to manufacture your product. There's a very good reason for this. It also then becomes a really good opportunity to find out how much your vanity project is going to cost you. But there are obviously many companies that produce CDs and vinyl and cassette and all of that stuff. And while I've been looking around at many of them for years, this is the only one I've found that would do runs of 50 at a reasonable price. So I've been using this particular service for quite a few years now. My experience so far has been fairly positive. What was interesting about this company is I decided to do the video today, and I got an email from them saying that they'd cut the prices even more. And I thought, well, that's probably not going to apply to the sort of thing I normally buy. So let's have a look at the prices now. I don't know how long they're going to be like this or whether they'll revert to the earlier price. But anyway, so let's have a look at the options. So we want CD, but as you can see, there are options for DVD and Blu-ray as well. And even one for no media. So for instance, you could get the covers manufactured and then do the discs yourself by printing them at home or have someone else manufacture them. So I'm going to go for CD. I want a colored disc, and then various options here so you can actually see what you're going to get. I used to go for digipacks some time ago, but I don't do those now. So I've got the old-fashioned dual cases, so if you really want the whole thing to just smash up in the post, you can go for these. They are still cheaper, which is kind of annoying really, but this is the new one which they started doing recently. Now the card option was always there, but the problem was that their card option was just a wallet and it had no spine to it. So if you were to, and I hate CDs like that, because you put them on a shelf and they just sort of disappear with everything else. You can't see where they are because there's nothing written on the spine, because there's no spine. But these Lancing packs do have a spine. So that's what I go for. There's no booklets or anything there, so all of that comes out. And I want 50 because I find it difficult to imagine selling more than 50. And I'm going to treat myself on this occasion and actually get them sealed. And the whole price, including tax, £101.40. I think that's really, really good. So that's it really, and then you proceed to checkout, etc. You can pay by PayPal, which is kind of handy. So if I go to my account, let's see what I've got here. Yeah, that's right. So you can see actually the various prices. Yeah, strangely enough, the last one I ordered was actually the most expensive so far, but the price has been fairly consistent. So here's the same pipe. So why do we need to go straight for the manufacturing before we have the artwork? Well, it's simply because you need to know what you're making an artwork for, and every company is going to have its own templates. Even if they're creating the same product, they're going to want you to send them the artwork, which is in the format which they can use to make things easy. So you really want to go to the artwork section, and then you get something like this. So Lancing pack 4-page color, blum. Right, there we go. Now we have what we need to actually start working on the artwork. Okay, so once you've got your template, then of course you can work on your artwork. And this is the final artwork for the album. So it's all done in Corel Draw and Corel Photo Paint. I'm not obviously won't go into how to design a cover. That's totally up to you. You may need to hire someone or just have a go yourself. You know, the thing is, the more you do these things, the better you get at them anyway. So it's just a matter of improving your skills to do these things. I'm quite happy with this one. I think it's probably the best one I've done so far, but could things be improved? Yeah, definitely. I'm sure someone, a professional, could do a much better job. So the key points here really are that you have the guides. That's the original guide. So what I've done is I've created a document which is exactly the same size as their guide, and then put my artwork on top, so that when I send them a PDF with the artwork in it, it's going to match up exactly with their guides, and therefore everything should be cut and printed in the right place. That's obviously quite crucial. Yeah, and here's the one for the disc as well. I mean, obviously they crop off the corners so it becomes circular. So once you've exported the artwork, in this case it was going to PDF, I think, then that's ready to go. But you've also got to prepare your masters to be sent off for manufacture. Here I'm actually using a relatively old copy of Nero. It's well known for burning discs. This older version starts like this, and you go for the audio CD, new, and it's an Explorer style interface. So you basically drag your tracks from this side over here, but you can drag and drop them from a standard Explorer window as well. Okay, so I'm looking for my masters, and eventually I found them. So I'm just going to chuck those ones in. Okay, so it's 11 tracks, just like the original album. So if I right click here and go to compilation properties, we've got a number of things here. Now you can put in the title, artist, copyright information, producer, and then you've got, again, we go back to that barcode, the UPC, EAN code, the release date. Yeah, you can put your release date there, and then this comment thing, well, you know, it makes sense to put in your website. It's quite important to finalize the disc, otherwise it will not write in a standard format, and it's very important that you make this a standard audio CD. Don't accidentally burn a data CD, because you're going to be wasting £100 getting the wrong sort of disc burnt up for you. So make sure you select audio CD right at the beginning. That's the compilation properties. There's not too much to put in there. It's just a sort of basic label for the whole thing. And if I have a look at the actual properties of the file itself, so it's at this point the spreadsheet comes into its own, because you can just easily grab the data you need to put into the disk. So here we go. I'm going to pop that on here. Now you've got the pause 2 seconds, and if I change that, put that down to 0, you see when you go back here it's actually down as 0. Obviously it depends on what you want to do. It's going to put a gap at the end of each track depending on what that amount says. Now typically you'd put a second at the beginning and the end of every track, which gives you that 2-second gap between tracks. On the other hand, you may have tracks which actually join together, because theoretically at least CDs play gaplessly. But what I've found more recently is that software-based CD players, so for instance you might put a disc in a computer, or maybe a more recent device like a DVD player, they won't do it anymore, and it's really annoying. So gapless playback it's a bit of a risk really, because MP3s won't do it either. They'll always put a gap in. To a large extent, this is not the most professional product. You know, it's basically taking a digital file, it's putting it on a digital medium, And I've tested these things. They play as well as any other CD on my equipment. There's a lot of variety out there though, of course. So once you have all of this properly labeled, then you can burn your disc and send it off. And cross your fingers and hopefully it'll come back looking great. So if you're about to send something off to be manufactured and you really want to test it on as many players as you've got in the house, and I've got various types of CD player as well as these Blu-ray players as well. So if the master disc doesn't play on a standard CD player, it's not going to play when it comes back from the manufacturing plant, and that could cause you all kinds of issues. So make sure you test, and then test again. If you've got a CD player in your car, try that as well, and just keep testing, because you don't want the disappointment, particularly if you're going for more than 50 copies. Here it is. And it's the moment of truth. It's the moment to find out whether I got it right, whether the spelling mistakes are going to leap off the cover, whether the first track isn't going to play properly, all of these things. And it's a little nerve-wracking, I've got to admit. So here we go. Nicely wrapped as always. It's amazing the turnaround on these things. I sent the masters off just before the weekend, and we're looking at Wednesday. I mean, they really go at speed. It worries me. Sometimes I wish they just like do it in 2 weeks, so you feel like they spent a bit of time, make sure it's right. Okay, I feel something rattling around in there. Okay, obviously I don't want to damage any, so I have to be careful going in. Nerve-wracking moments. Okay, little packaging. We have discs. Okay. So let's have a look. That actually looks pretty good. Yeah, the print quality is pretty good. Okay, so externally, very good. Okay. So this is a shot that was taken while there was a comet in the sky last year, and you could hardly see it. It was taken from my wife's phone, and she actually managed to get a picture of the comet. And of course, comets are exactly the sort of thing that conspiracy theorists go nuts about. So I thought it would be absolutely perfect for an album called Conspiracy Theory to have a comet in there. And it's actually come out in the printing, which is good. So let's have a look at the disc. It's very shiny, and that's the lacquer that comes off it. But I don't know, I think it's pretty good actually. That's right, I think it's the best one. Yeah, I must admit, every time they do these, they look better than the last time. So yeah, I'm quite impressed. So looks wise, I think everything's good. Just going to get another one out. I wanted to check the lineup here, because quite often this is not focusing very well. Oh, that's better. Okay. That's pretty good actually. I'm going to look at it just close up myself. Yeah, they've really got it bang on this time. Yeah, okay, well I'll have to give up on that one. But anyway, you have to take my word for it. That is actually very well aligned. So it's great, and here's the rest. That is it. Well, this run at least. Now these are the first 50, and if I was to reprint, then they would have a different cover. So these are going to be unique, whatever happens. I've never had to reprint anything in the past, so if it happened now, I'd be like totally and utterly flabbergasted. So yeah, surprise me, everybody. So what else do we need to do then? I think I just need to play it, don't I? I mean, let's face it, it's not going to be much of a CD release if it doesn't actually play, so let's go. I'm not too sure why I'm videoing my speakers, but it works. Cool. So while I was editing that video, I realized that the whole subject is actually really quite complicated, and I probably haven't covered it as in depth as you really need. So if there's any questions you have, then please put them in the comments and I'll try and help as much as I can. Currently thinking about doing a video about how to get your stuff uploaded to streaming services like Spotify. So if that's of interest, then let me know, and I can then go through that process as well. So if you get a chance to check out the album, let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed the video, you found it useful in some way, then a like would be appreciated. And also subscribe if you want to see some more stuff like this. People that are new here, I mainly focus on things like synthesizers, and I'm trying to do some more unusual music theory things, and there'll be more of that coming up as time goes on. So if that sounds interesting, then please consider hitting the subscribe button, and hopefully catch you on a future video. Thanks very much for watching. Till then, bye.